Hi, Franklin Foxes. I miss you. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're happy and healthy. And I'm going to read chapter 4 today of Shark Bait. So, in chapter 3, it was called Boss. And so, what happened was the two boys were pushed out to the sea from the current and they kept getting separated. And the one boy kept saying boss, 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 but he was actually saying Bruce, which meant shark, because in Finding Nemo, the big shark was called Bruce. So we have Sam and Michi, those are the two boys. They kept getting separated, and then finally the minnows were jumping out of the water, and the shark was getting closer to Sam, and suddenly the shark went up and attacked Sam, but he didn't bite him, he just bumped into his hip. And then the last thing that happens in the chapter is his plaster cast on his foot dragged him under, the weight of it, and then he was back in the blurry green undersea world, and the shark was there too, coming straight at him. So that's where we're at, chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called Killing Machine. Here's something I didn't know about sharks. When they attack something that's too big to fit in their mouth, sometimes they headbutt their victim first to stun it. So that means they come at it kind of like you're punching someone in the face with your fist. They come and jab their head into you to scare it. Then they come back to feed. Here's something the shark didn't know about me. I wasn't stunned. I could fight back. But it wasn't an even match. This was a 13-foot tiger shark, a 1,300-pound killing machine, armed with enough razor-sharp teeth to take out a fully grown tuna with one bite. I was a 135-pound boy, armed with nothing more than a deep fear of becoming shark food. But survival is a strong instinct. When the shark came rushing in for the kill, I aimed a karate kick at its nose. On dry land, I'm an orange belt, but that doesn't count for much under the sea. Underwater, a human is very much out of his natural element, whereas a shark is right at home. Rolling effortlessly onto its side, the giant fish opened its bear-trap jaws and my foot went straight in. Crunch! That bite should have killed me. At the very least, it should have taken my foot off at the ankle. But the only pain I felt was a sharp twinge in my knee as my leg doubled back on itself. The next thing I knew, I was being dragged through the water. My foot was locked in the shark's jaws, while the rest of me trailed alongside its brown, sandpapery body like a human pilot fish. But pilot fish go forwards, not backwards, and they don't hurt sharks. I grabbed hold of a big pectoral fin and gave it a sharp twist, sending the shark into a series of crazy barrel rolls. On one of the rolls, we broke the water's silvery surface, but before I had time to breathe, I was underwater again, back in a world of green, surrounded by bubbles, spinning. There was no feeling in my foot. Perhaps that had been severed. There wasn't time to think. Finally, the shark stopped spinning and began shaking me in its mouth, like a dog playing with a kid's stuffed toy. Because we were underwater, our movements were slowed down, otherwise I might have been shaken to death. I had lost my grip on the fin and dangled by one leg just below the shark's head. Its big silver and black eye looked down at me. The salt water made everything blurry, but I was close enough to see a snarl of hooked, bristling teeth chewing on my foot. I was about to die, yet I felt strangely calm. Shock does that to you. It's the mind's natural anesthetic when all hope of survival is gone, and you know your time's up. But that doesn't mean I was happy about it. You ugly, overgrown anchovy, I thought, and gave the shark a power strike. Okay, it wasn't much of a hit. Karate was never intended to be used underwater. But the edge of my hand hit my attacker in the eye. It probably surprised the shark more than hurt it, but as my karate instructor says, surprise beats size. Distracted by the unexpected blow, the shark lost its grip on my foot. Suddenly I was free, but not out of danger. The huge brown fish circled slowly, as if it was thinking about having a second try at me. Finally, it must have decided that there were easier meals to be had in the sea, and more digestible ones. It spat out a big lump of plaster, then went zigzagging silently away. Okay, so what happened in that chapter at the end is his plaster cast is the only thing that the shark latched onto, and it spit it out. So luckily he is okay, but he probably has a really hurt foot. Right, we are in chapter 5 called Shark Bait. Hey, that's the name of the book. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read it because it's short, so this will be chapters 4 and 5. I should be grateful to that shark. It saved my life. If it hadn't come along when it did and tried to eat me, I would have drowned for sure. Luckily, the shark bit down on my plaster cast in the corner of its mouth, where the teeth were relatively small and widely spaced, so it couldn't close its jaw the whole way. It only managed to crack the plaster. When it released me, part of my cast remained in its jaws like the broken half of a walnut shell. The other half was still taped to my leg. All I had to do was rip off the shredded trash bag. Then I was free to kick my way to the surface. Michi grabbed me under the arms and supported me while I recovered. Watashi wa anara gasam ni yarata to omonoimi sita, he said. But I couldn't talk in any language, even my own. I was too busy gasping and spluttering and coughing up water. I must have swallowed half the coral sea during my battle with the tiger shark. Finally, I got my breath back. Holding onto Michi's water wings to keep myself afloat, I ducked my head back under the sea and looked around in every direction. There was no sign of the shark, but I saw something else that surprised me. Michi was still wearing his brown leather shoes. No wonder he'd been having so much trouble swimming. I was about to surface again and tell him to get rid of them when I noticed something. There was a reddish-brown stain in the water. I came up for air, then ducked my head straight back down. It was blood! All around us, the water was stained with blood. Where was it coming from? I looked at my foot. I looked at both my feet. Then I looked at my legs and my arms, but I couldn't see any cuts or injuries. If the blood wasn't mine, then it must have been Michi's. I gulped more air and ducked my head back under. Sure enough, there was a long, jagged gash on one of Michi's legs. Did Bruce do that? I asked, gasping for breath. At the mention of Bruce, Michi looked set to jump right out of the sea, like one of the minnows we'd seen earlier. I quickly shook my head to reassure him that the shark hadn't come back. You're hurt, I said, pointing down. Michi's eyes bugged out. He hadn't been aware he was injured. It must have happened when the monster wave hit. A piece of sharp coral must have sliced Michi's leg open. That explained the shark attack. Normally sharks leave humans alone, but blood in the water will make them aggressive. The tiger shark must have been attracted by the smell of blood and mistaken me for its source, which was lucky for Michi and lucky for me too, as things turned out. But now the blood was a problem, not only because Michi was losing it, but because of what it might attract. A bleeding wound in the open sea is like an invitation to every marine predator and scavenger for miles around, telling them there's a feast on. If we didn't stop the blood in a hurry, Michi and I were shark bait. There was still a strip of tape stuck to my leg where I'd ripped away the remnants of the trash bag. I peeled it off and held it up to show Michi. Then I pointed at his leg. He nodded in understanding and helped me position it over the long, bleeding gash on his calf. The tape was no longer very sticky, but it stopped most of the blood. As long as it stayed in place, we would probably be okay. Now our only problem was getting back to the island. It was a big problem. The island was about half a mile away. Most of the time we couldn't even see it. It only rose into view when we floated over the largest swells, and each swell carried us a little further out to sea. Or in to sea, I suppose, because the current was pushing us back towards the Australian mainland. Take your shoes off, I said to Michi. We'll try to swim back to the island. He gave me a blank look. Shoes, I repeated, pointing down. I mimed undoing shoelaces, but Michi shook his head. Bruce, he said. I tried to explain that shoes would be no help at all if another shark attacked, but I couldn't get the message across. Michi kept shaking his head. He was determined to keep his shoes on, so I gave up arguing. Part of me knew it would make little difference whether Michi kept his shoes on or not. The island was too far away, and the current was too strong. We would have to wait to be rescued. Our families would have noticed we were missing by now. They would send boats looking for us. There were several powerful speedboats at the resort. It would only take 10 minutes to reach us. I hoped with all my heart they would find us before nightfall. At least there was no longer any danger of drowning. I clung to Michi's water wings and wriggled my toes in the water. My foot felt okay. A big old rodeo bull had stomped on it 6 weeks earlier. The doctor planned to remove the cast when we got back from our holiday, but Bruce the tiger shark had saved him the trouble. Thoughts of the attack sent a rash of goosebumps tingling across my skin. Don't think about sharks, I told myself. But it was hard not to, surrounded by all that sea, our legs dangling in the water in full view of whatever might be down there. Bruce, whispered Michi, as if he could read my thoughts. I was about to say, don't even joke about it, when the words died in my throat, because Michi wasn't joking. That is the end of chapter 5. Stay tuned for chapter 6.